Hello and welcome to another video on the Life After Brady channel. Today we're going to take a look at Tom Brady's history in AFC Championship games. Brady's obviously world famous for his performance in Super Bowls, winning 6 of them, but lesser known is his championship caliber games and AFC title games, where he's absolutely been a stud and allowed him to get to the next level where other quarterbacks and other teams have fallen short. We're going to look back at a combination of the Patriots overall as a team as well as Brady, going back from 2001 moving forward. So since 2001, the Patriots have been in 13 AFC title games, more than twice any other team. The great state of Pennsylvania has Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, who both played in 6, but both half of what the Patriots have played in the same amount of time. Patriots are 9-4 in that time period, going with their 6-3 record in Super Bowls. Of those 9 games they won. There are teams that have a better record than them, but all those teams played 3 or less games and all had perfect records. So anyone who's lost a game was not better than the Patriots, and anyone who played 4 or more times, has a worse record, worse win percentage than the Patriots. The Rams and Seahawks are both a perfect 3-0. The Giants on their way to their 2 Super Bowls are 2-0, and the Raiders and Bucks going back to the early 2000s when they met in the Super Bowl the year after the Patriots' first run in 2001 are 1-0. Patriots offense averaged over 27 points a game, on the defense allowed less than 22, almost 3 touchdowns a game. The most points scored was 45, the famous Deflategate game where they absolutely killed the Colts in 2015. And then Brady's numbers in those 13 games, not great, definitely not great, but good enough. 62% completion percentage, over 3,000 yards, 18 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, and those 13 games, but most importantly, the 9-4 record. Tom Brady has played in every Patriots AFC title game going back to 2001. Famously, though, 2001 is the one that he only played about half of. He was injured with a sprained ankle at the end of the second quarter, and Drew Bledsoe came in that game against the Steelers back in 2001, 2002. But Brady has played in every game since, completing all of them. Here's a look at his kind of most and least performances. His most attempts was out in Denver 2016, the loss 20-18. Least attempts was that game we talked about earlier, 2002, where 18 attempts as he only played the first half of the game. Yards-wise, the most was 384. He never passed 400 yards in an AFC title game, beating Pittsburgh in his third and final game against Pittsburgh in the AFC title games. And the least, obviously, back to that game that he only played 2 quarters. Touchdowns, never 4. He did 3 twice. That 2015 Deflategate game where they scored 45 points, and then Pittsburgh, the 384 yards. He did that. And then 2008, back in a little bit of a rough stretch, that was the year that they went 16-0 and they kind of had a rough stretch in the playoffs, including 3 interceptions against San Diego on their way to losing to the Giants in the Super Bowl. And he had 0 interceptions 4 times. Completion percentage-wise, this is looking at a 20-year history. It's important to remember the league has obviously changed a lot from 2001, where it was a run-heavy. Completion percentage was not as well thought of. So 76% was his best back in 2017. And the most time sacks, to go with those 56 attempts in 2016, he was sacked 4 times. Here's a look courtesy of Pro Football Reference at the 13 Patriots AFC title games going back to 2001. They start off 3-0, and they finish Brady's career 3-0. They played Pittsburgh 3 times, Indianapolis 3 times, Baltimore and Denver both twice, and then Jacksonville, Kansas City, and San Diego at the time all at once. Couple things you can see here. Most points scored was actually a loss. Going back to 2006, the Colts 72 combined points to 38-34. That was the famous Kevin Falk game, I believe, where they were stopped on 4th down. Kansas City last year 68 points with Patrick Mahomes, a shootout for the ages, 68 points. Really that second half and really that fourth quarter just absolutely lit up the scoreboard. San Diego was the fewest points as they beat San Diego 21-12 in 2007 in a pretty ugly game. Again, this defense, you look back to the early 2000s, 7 points, 10 points, 17 points, 14 points, 27 points, 38 points allowed. The early 2000s were, pretty impressive. And then a rough stretch, and we'll talk about it a little bit, but you look 2012 through 2013, a couple stretches there. 2014, a lot of losses. Baltimore, Denver was ugly there for a while. Yes, they beat Baltimore in 2012 in a hard-fought game, but then lose to Baltimore the following year, and then lose to Denver. But really, also just the stretch here of 2004 they win the Super Bowl, and then 2006 they lose. 2007 they win. But 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, they come back and just make game after game, which is just absolutely remarkable. This gives you a little better look at that. This is total wins versus the year that they happened, and you can see kind of that first half of it, pretty spaced out. Wins the first three out of the first 4 years, and then a big stretch before they come back in 2012 against Baltimore and win that game. They did play 6 games on the road, including 3 out of the first 4 were actually on the road, and they won 3 out of those first 4 games. And obviously just started hot, as you can see, 3-0, and then finished hot 3-0 going back to 2016. Here's a better look at the points for, points against. So you can see the offense, the defense, and then just the highest scoring games that they played. The offense is in blue in this chart. Defense is in the orange, and then total points is in gray. You can see that 2005, 2006 range, some pretty high scoring games. And last year, the 68 points scored. Some pretty close games, along the way. You go back to, 24-17, closest game. 38-34 loss, 23-20 win in 2012, and then the loss in Denver 2016, 20-18. So definitely some close losses along the way for the Patriots. Now let's get into a little bit more fun. Let's look at Brady's specific numbers. Here we're going to look at completions and touchdowns in his AFC title games. Again, never threw for more than 40 completions, never threw for more than 4 touchdowns, never threw for more than 3 touchdowns, So you see here his original performance, the lowest, must have got cut off there, the completions, but a good little stretch here. You can see as the league progresses, basically from a run first game with Antoine Smith, Corey Dillon to later on, it's clearly Brady's team does not have the same caliber of running backs. Later on, you see those pass completions move up. The touchdowns also move up as you go forward. Here we'll mix in the interceptions. Interceptions are now added in gray to the chart. That San Diego 2008 game is the one that really sticks out. And a couple zeros there, 4 zeros. Usually more touchdowns than interceptions, but especially later on, winning those final 3 games, you see just a great job of being able to not turn the football over. Usually more touchdowns than completions, except last year against Kansas City, where he had 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. And lastly, let's just throw in yards there. So this is completions in the orange bars, and then the gray yards with the right-hand column. Again, as you see, the league just becomes a more pass-happy league. He's thrown for nearly 400 yards the last couple of years, usually over 300, around 350. So definitely just more pass-happy, more control of the offense, and it's more his team compared to early on. You see, really the defense is the one that's carrying the weight. He's not throwing the ball away. With those interceptions we saw on the previous page, very few 1 or 0 interceptions, and he was just asked to do more as he got older. There's also a good representation, and I don't have it broken out by other quarterbacks, but just look at this age. 34 is the middle of this chart here, and who else's career can look like this of 35 on, playing in this many AFC title games. Brady's unique in that regard. His age is just unprecedented, and the success that he had is unprecedented, and that's why he is the absolute greatest.